Welcome to The Explainer. Think about any huge company out there. They all started with just a single idea. But how does that idea actually survive? How does it grow into a major player? Well, today we're going to map out that entire journey. And I'll show you exactly how you can use this stuff to absolutely smash Section 1.3 of your business exams. All right, here's the plan. We're going to start with the person behind it all, the entrepreneur. What makes them tick? Then we'll get practical and figure out how you even measure how big a business is. We'll look at that huge decision, grow or stay small, and of course, why some businesses just don't make it. Definitely stick around till the end because we are going to break down step by step how to answer a real exam question and get top marks. Okay, part one, the entrepreneur's DNA. So what really gets a business off the ground? It all comes down to one person. But what's the difference between someone who just has a good idea and someone who actually builds a whole company around it? Let's dive into the mind of an entrepreneur. So what is an entrepreneur really? Look, it's not just about having a cool idea. It's about being the one person who is actually willing to put their own money, their own time, their own reputation on the line to make that idea a reality. It's the huge difference between saying, hey, someone should invent this, and being the person who actually does it. That willingness to risk it all, that's the secret sauce. And you know, it's interesting. When you look at successful entrepreneurs, you start to see the same characteristics pop up again and again. It's like they all have this essential toolkit. They're risk takers for sure, but they also have to be super creative to spot opportunities no one else sees. They need that rock-solid self-confidence to keep pushing forward, and they've got to be great communicators to get people to believe in their vision. Now listen up, because this is a huge exam tip. Just making a list of these traits in your answer, that's not going to get you the best marks. Examiners want you to explain the link. They want to know why a certain trait leads to success. So for example, being a risk taker is crucial because without taking that first financial risk, the business would literally never even exist. That's the analysis they're looking for. Section 2. How big is big? Okay. So our entrepreneur has taken the plunge, the business is up and running. Now the question is, how do we know how well it's doing? Or more to the point, how big is it? Let's get into the different ways you can actually measure the size of a company. It sounds like such a simple question, right? But the answer is, well, it's a bit more complicated than you might think. There are a few different ways to do it, and honestly, each one tells a slightly different part of the story and comes with its own set of problems. Okay, this slide is so important because this is where tons of students trip up. You could, say, count the number of employees. But what about a high-tech factory run by robots with only 5 people? Or you could look at sales. But a tiny jewelry store that sells 1 diamond might have more sales revenue than a massive supermarket. But please look at that bottom row. This is the key takeaway. Profit is not a measure of size. Profit tells you how successful a business is, not how big it is. Never, ever mix those two up. So let's say the business is doing well, it's successful. Now our entrepreneur faces this huge fundamental choice that's going to shape the whole future of the company. Is it time to expand, or is there actually an advantage to staying small? You know, the pressure to get bigger can be massive. Growing can mean lower costs because you're making more stuff. That's economies of scale. It means you grab a bigger piece of the market pie and you can spread your risks. But staying small has its own superpowers. Maybe the owner wants less stress and a better work-life balance. Or maybe they offer a really personal service that gets lost if they get too big. Sometimes a business is in a tiny niche market. There is no right answer here. It's all about strategy. Now, if the decision is to grow, there are really 2 main ways to do it. The first is internal growth. That's growing organically. You know, using your own money to open new locations or develop new products. The other option is the fast track, external growth. And that's all about merging with or just straight up buying another company. And this external growth happens in 3 main flavors. Horizontal is the simple one. You just buy your direct competitor. Think one coffee shop buying another coffee shop. Then you have vertical integration. That's when you buy a company in your supply chain. So our coffee shop might buy the farm that grows its coffee beans. And then there's the wild one, conglomerate integration. That's when you merge with a business in a totally different industry to spread your risk. But here's the reality check. Growth is not a guarantee, and it always comes with risk. Even the biggest, most famous companies can trip up and fail if they're not paying attention.
Businesses almost never fail by accident. It usually comes down to one of these four big reasons. It could be poor management, just making bad call after bad call. But a huge one is failing to adapt. I mean, think about Blockbuster. They knew streaming was coming, but they didn't change their business model. And then Netflix came along and just wiped them off the map. And then there's the simple stuff like running out of cash. You can be profitable on paper, but if you can't pay your rent this month, you're done.
And for startups, it is so much tougher. They just don't have the years of experience, a loyal customer base, or a big pile of cash in the bank that an established company can lean on when things go wrong. It's like they're walking a much, much thinner tightrope. Okay, this brings us to what might be the most important part of this whole explainer. How do you take everything we've just talked about and turn it into actual marks and an exam? All right, let's get practical. Here is a totally typical 6-mark question based on exactly what we've covered. How would you even start to answer this? Let's build the perfect response together. To get all 6 marks, you need to use a simple 3-part structure. First, you get your basic knowledge marks for just identifying 2 good reasons, like say the market is too small or the owner can't get a loan. Easy. Then you get analysis marks for explaining why those reasons force a business to stay small. But the final marks, the top-level evaluation marks, come when you make a choice. You have to pick one reason and argue why you think it's the most important one. And this right here is what a perfect top-level evaluation looks like. It's straight from a mark scheme. It makes a clear decision. It says market size is more important. But here's the genius part. Look at how it connects the 2 reasons together. It argues that if your market is tiny, you'll never have enough customers to make much money. And if you're not making much money, the whole question of getting finance to expand becomes irrelevant anyway. That's how you get to the top marks. So there you have it, the whole life cycle of a business, from that first spark of an idea to the big choices about growth and that constant threat of failure. I want to leave you with a question to think about. From everything we've just covered, what do you believe is the single toughest challenge any entrepreneur has to overcome? Thanks for joining the Explainer.